What is up? Happy Monday. Sports Center program is brought to you by National Certified Alarms. That's NCA. The long-term contracts license number 645. Obviously, we're at not hard to say if it's a war, right? Because they say war, but is it war? Not the way that we would think it's war. But they didn't vote on war, so there's that. Congress, I would ask, I saw a lot of some of our Congress people, like Burchett and them, talking about how great this is and all that kind of stuff. Okay, whatever. But there's no part of you that thinks, hey, man, Congress used to have a reason to be. And that reason doesn't exist anymore because you guys are all you're too chumpy.
Don't want to go on record.
Yeah. Just, nothing? Like you don't want to have any kind of say? Now, he's allowed to do something for, I think it's 60 days. But then that would have to be voted on after that to extend. I don't think it's going to go on 60 days. I don't think we can afford it. I don't think we have the amount of...
Oh, dude, all we got to do is print more money.
Yeah, but it's about whether or not we can afford it with the stockpile of stuff that is out there, which is not a lot. Do you guys remember this guy's name was Donald Trump?
The war in Iraq, we spent $2 trillion, thousands of lives. We don't even have it. Iran is taking over Iraq with the second largest oil reserves in the world. Obviously, it was a mistake. So George Bush made a mistake. We can make mistakes, but that one was a beauty. We should have never been in Iraq. We have destabilized the Middle East.
But so you still think he should be impeached?
I think it's my turn, isn't it?
You do whatever you want. You call it whatever you want. I want to tell you, they lied.
Okay.
They said there were weapons of mass destruction. There were none, and they knew there were none. There were no weapons of mass destruction.
All right.
Boo, boo. They booed him because he doesn't like war. Boo. And that was low energy Jeb. Do you guys remember this guy?
We're not looking for regime change. I just want to make that clear. We do not seek regime change.
Do you want to see regime change in Iran?
No. If there was, there was. But no, I don't want it. I'd like to see everything calm down as quickly as possible.
I think we all would. But what's it look like? See, I've said this for a long time. We are great at getting into stuff. We're horrible at getting out. We don't stick the landing. And you can't say they're killing all their people. They are. Okay. So we're going to go in there for that? Well, why aren't we going into Africa? If that's what, because there's no oil in Africa in certain parts. So we know that, right? Like, okay. But now there's precious, right? There's minerals and stuff we could use. And we see what's going on there. Okay. What about the nukes? How close were they? Ted Cruz came out and said, look, that was a lot of that wasn't as real as you think. There's no way they're getting a nuke in any time soon. Okay, so then what was it? I mean, several of these things. I want to know, what's the end game? That's just it. What's the end game?
United States total control of falafels.
Waffles I'll go with. Falafels? If you want to do that, let's take over Belgium. They got all kinds of waffles there.
We can probably negotiate easier with Belgium.
Probably. More Muslims there. Oh, if you guys know anything about Belgium, there's some... The hottest spot in all of Europe for terrorism and whatnot, it isn't France. It isn't Britain. It's Belgium. Belgium is there's some places. But I didn't want us to do this. Because I do fear, you have it's funny, like Pete Hegseth getting on people today about, as if we don't have a right to ask questions or to have some trepidation over this because we've not been told stories like this before. Of course we have. We've been told tons of stories about how this is going to be simple and how it's going to be easy. And, with Venezuela, I mean, what do? We went in and snatched a bad guy and then put somebody who was more competent in power and just said, you're in charge now, and nothing else has changed. It wasn't even a regime change. We just swapped one idiot out for somebody less idiotic. Nothing's changed for those people. So I think it's a fair question. What is it here for us? And think about this for Europe too, because you got to look at the big picture. A lot of you, no, it's this is what it is. What's the big issue going to be if this thing goes sideways? And let's just say we decide we're done, right? So we step away. Bibi's got all that he's wanted out of it, which is to watch it devolve into hell. Hezbollah, they're already bombing Hezbollah. They're talking about putting boots on the ground in Lebanon. You've got all kinds of, there's been, basically every place around there has gotten some sort of missile or drone attack. And if it does devolve into chaos, what happens with the people that are going to be fleeing these countries? Oh, which is, I don't think we need that. We don't need mass, immigration from all over that could head to Europe. I'm sure Europe would be thrilled by that. So we'll see. I don't think it's going to last as long as a lot of people think. And I'm not a doomsday. Some of you hate Trump. No, I was just told we weren't getting into any more wars. That's what I was told. And we have bombed and bombed and bombed for the last year. By the way, he has bombed pretty much more than any other president in the last year. For those of you guys, if you care about, okay, well, has he? Yeah. He is the lethal president. Iran, Nigeria, Venezuela. All right. Those were three that the U.S. military had never been a target. Okay. Those are three. He continued to keep up with the usual suspects. Somalia. He just crushes Somalia all the time. He's dropped more bombs than Somalia. And then you can go down the line of just how many other nations he has hit, including Libya, Iraq, Nigeria. And then, of course, the people in the waters off of Mexico, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Colombia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So, I don't think he's going to get his peace prize. But I just want to know what's the best case scenario, what comes out of this? They become a nation that is living in democracy. Probably not going to happen overnight. It becomes a nation that fragments itself, and then all of a sudden you've got civil war. I think we should all know because, we've lost servicemen and women. And probably will lose more. And that is according to them. That is what they said. So is that something that is, what is our appetite for this? Is the appetite, oh yeah, everybody in America? Because look, the people on the left who hate Trump, doesn't matter what happens, right? They're idiots. They hate Trump. They got Trump derangement syndrome. Then there's people on the way right who have Trump derangement syndrome, who it doesn't matter what he says, they're gonna buy every. But a vast majority of people, they're like in the middle, They like Trump. Maybe they don't like Trump, but they're conservative. They want to see how this plays itself out. But we should kind of have a real understanding of what does it look like. Do we just step back in 2 weeks after we bomb the hell out of them and say, mission accomplished again? And are we back here in 6 months? Because the next group that took over found out they're way worse, which is always the fear. Always the fear, pal, that they're way worse. We don't want way worse. I'll tell you that right now. Earlier today, Trump talking about all of the things, including the objectives.
Our objectives are clear. First, we're destroying Iran's missile capabilities, and you see that happening on an hourly basis, and their capacity to produce brand new ones, and pretty good ones they make. Second, we're annihilating their Navy. We've knocked out already 10 ships. They're at the bottom of the sea. Third, we're ensuring that the world's number one sponsor of terror can never obtain a nuclear weapon.
Okay. So the nuclear weapon, they're far away from the nuclear weapon. By the way, the deal that was offered to them last week. So this is the deal that was offered to us and Israel and everybody else, was 1,000 times better than anything Obama got. And Obama's deal was just to get a deal. Let's be real. So it was just to get a deal, got a deal. I always thought, what a silly deal, because the way that they had worked that thing up was it like you had a month? It's like, hey, we're going to come check and see if you guys are working on nuclear bombs. We can get you in a month. Okay.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah. When Chuck Schumer's like, this is the dumbest thing ever. That being said, by the way, that also had a sunset clause. So after 25 years, they could do whatever they wanted to do. The one that we had last week was no sunset clause at all. Means it was in perpetuity. That if they enriched over a certain level, that had to leave, and they were fine with that. Bibi Netanyahu in Israel, you know what they wanted? Even if you enrich for medical purposes, like for cancer, that can't happen. So, and we said this last week, right? He was going to put these crazy, no way you were ever going to be able to actually pull any of that off and still have a nation. Because his goal was never, ever about coming up with a nuclear deal. He feels he's got to do this, and America got on board. So we'll find out how long it lasts. Trump seems to think it's going to be... I think it's going to be... I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be... I would love to think it's going to be over by this weekend. I would love to think that. And again, I have no idea who's going to take over. There's several different people that were in moderate kind of politicians in Iran, but they're not the leaders because you need somebody strong. And that's the other thing. Whoever takes over, you need somebody strong because the powers that be, they say lay down your arms. Well, why would the IRGC lay down their arms? Because they were just out shooting protesters 4 weeks ago. So lay down your arms. We may be fine with it. We're like, yay, that's great. Good for you. But those people, they're going to pick up the arms and turn it around on them. So they're not going to go anywhere because they figure, you know what? We got nothing to lose. Nothing to lose. And they are far more, by the way, the IRGC, that group in many ways is way worse than Khomeini. Way worse. They're far more just super strict in the Shia version of stuff. So this will be interesting over the next couple of days. I think, like I said, I want us to win, but what does winning look like? When people say you don't like Trump, no, I don't like war. I mean, what is it good for? Outside of Lindsey. Oh, by the way, you guys want to hear Lindsey Graham? Because he's so gay for war. I said the boys. You guys saw that, right?
Yeah, it was. I laughed out loud.
Yeah, it was. Did you get yours too, there, Ken? My Lindsey Graham.
I did not see that
in his rainbow sweater. It says I'm gay for war.
And anything else you got?
My feeling today is that I'm very glad that President Trump won and Kamala Harris lost. I don't try to be political at moments like this, but I'm responding to the senator from Arizona who took a shot at this operation. Yep. Unfortunately, the modern Democratic Party is pathetic in the face of evil. Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, they embrace deals that make no sense. The difference between Donald Trump and our Democratic colleagues, he's common sense. He understands the world. I've been talking to him continuously for days and weeks. He's of the mindset that the Ayatollah is Hitler in a robe wearing a turban, that he's not capable of changing his ways. He reached out to him to test to see if he would. Donald Trump does not get us entangled in forever wars, but he sure as hell stands up to the bad guys and he makes us safer.
Okay. Well, I hope it's true. So, and I think, look, do I like the fact that we got a guy that's not afraid to look you in the eyes and, and say, like, Bell sent me something earlier. I'll probably play for you later because I'm going to have to beep it out. But it's all, they ask, what would you say to Iran? And then it's Kamala going, don't. And then they said, to Biden, what would you say? Don't. And then it was Trump and he's like, I'm going to bomb the bleep out of him, which is hilarious. But it's nice to know you have that. Doesn't mean you always have to use it. And if we get dragged down and bogged down in things, and that's why a lot of people even on the right, are a little gun-shy because we've seen this before, and it always seems to come from this region, right? We never get into like, oh, my God, we're going back to the Canadian fur wars. None of that stuff, which would be crazy. I'll tell you that right now. Coming up, Epstein. Clinton spoke. Nobody heard it. Why? Because we bombed Iran. What did I see today? Operation Epstein's Fury is what they're calling this. Chad Benson, just Super Talk 99.7. Yeah, that is interesting. That bill, I was looking at that. It's like dynamic pricing. So the person in front of you could buy a loaf of bread for a nickel, and you might pay $7.
Yeah.
They also are they're always still trying to figure out how they can wipe out taxes for groceries, which is.
I'd be all for that.
Yeah, it's weird because like some things you tax, some things you don't. But we all want taxes gone, but we all want stuff too. We want the roads. Who's going to take care of where's our police going to come from? Is anybody here volunteering? Probably not. So, but the dynamic pricing, that's an interesting thing because they do the same thing with concerts, obviously, which they're trying to figure out how to stop that down and but if it's 100 degrees outside and you have a chance, and normally it's $1 for a soda, but everybody wants a soda, why shouldn't you be able to charge $1.50 for it? And if it's 40 degrees outside, nobody's buying your sodas, well, maybe you have to charge 50 cents for it. It's if it's two different people in line, that's the issue.
Yeah.
So
yeah, based on what apps and what apps basically have been spying on you.
Yeah,
how you spend online and what you're willing to spend.
So, and what you're willing to spend. It's like we were talking about earlier. What are you willing to spend? What are you willing to pay for your loaf of bread?
Hey, look, this dude'll spend $20 on a hot dog.
That's insane.
How much for the hot dog? $20.
20 American dollars? That's crazy. But if you're starving, you would pay it. Right? If you were starving. So that's the whole thing. The thing is, how good is the dynamic pricing? Because they've tried this in other places, and I've seen vending machines and we had some in Arizona. So when it would take the temperature. So outside, if it was like 90 or above, you're paying $2.50 for a soda. But if it was in the 60s, you're paying, 75 cents. But how can you do that I guess you would do it based on if there's a big sale, if there's 40 loaves of bread and they've sold 20 in the last hour, well, then there's a run on bread. Or toilet paper, right? Like COVID, man, you could have done anything. How much could you have gotten for, a whole bunch of toilet paper? God, that was like cocaine.
More than a pile of leaves.
Oh, no doubt about that. Man, that was crazy. Remember that? Remember like you could go in there and it's like, oh, good luck trying to get any hand sanitizer.
I remember when my wife and I were finding stashed bundles of toilet paper that people had stashed in various parts of the store to come back and get.
That's right, because remember when they were limiting people?
Yes.
You would get in line with like your kids, and you're like, everybo's getting a whole thing. I'm like, she's 2.
We actually found a 4-pack shoved behind some tubs of ice cream.
I'm like, what did you think was going to happen?
And we took it.
Damn Skippy, you should have. Took the ice cream as well.
We let it warm up before we used it.
Yeah, I would do that. I would definitely do that. You know what? I was telling everybody, we should be selling bidets. Those are great. Get some bidets, everybody. You have to worry about the toilet paper at that point in time. Urgh. All right, coming up, more on the war. I got some of your text messages. Yeah, got some of those things. Japanese workers, this is interesting. Gen Z and the boomers, what are they doing to these Japanese workers? That is so bizarre. But back in the day in Japan, when you went to work for a company, it was for life. And now they don't know what to do with these people. We'll talk about that, among other things, straight ahead. Chad Benson, Super Talk 99.7. This portion of the program is brought to you by NCA, National Certified Alarms. No long-term contracts. License number 645. A lot of you chiming in about the prices. It's too damn expensive, man. Life's too damn expensive. I don't think it's going to, I think a lot of people worried about the oil. Oil's going to go through the roof. OPEC came out and said that that's not going to happen. They're going to pump more oil if need be, right? Because they need us to also protect them because some of the stuff that's flying over is heading towards Saudi Arabia, who the bitterest of enemies, even maybe more so than Israel and Iran, is probably Iran and Saudi Arabia. They're way more bitter than what you see. So it's an interesting, this whole thing, it's terrifying because we're dealing with the fact that we could be getting drawn into something, which everybody's like, well, you didn't serve. I mean, when people say that, it's like, well, okay, so did you play professional sports? You didn't? Well, then you can never talk about sports. Did you? I mean, that's ridiculous. If you want us to, that's like saying, well, Trump can't do anything because he didn't serve. I mean, that's ridiculous. We're all in this. Everybody wants our vote. Last I checked, they want our vote. Which, by the way, primaries already start tomorrow in Texas. It's go time in Texas. Good God. When's our primary here? We know? Look that up for me, Bell. When is our primary? It's in, because I was looking at so many of them today. So our primary is coming up soon. And then you're going to start, by the way, we already apologize. You guys are going to start hearing a lot of commercials. A lot of those commercials that are going to be like the ones where they're going to go, I stand for this, this, and this, this, and this. This is who I am. I totally 100% behind this awesome commercial. So be prepared to be bombarded. We're just letting you guys know right there.
Early voting starts April 15th and goes through April 30th.
April 30th. Yeah. Okay. So we're still a ways away. All right. Whew. Yeah. The Texas one's going to be interesting because you got Paxton and Cornyn there. Because everybody's wondering, can Texas go blue? Paxton's going to have a tough time. He tried to say today, I was impeached like Trump was impeached. And here's the problem. We knew for you, Paxton, we knew who Trump was, right? Yeah, you cheated on your wife, and then you're cheating with another woman, supposedly, who has 7 kids and is married. We knew who Trump was. You pretended to be the other person.
I was looking at the wrong thing. It's actually early voting starts July 17th and ends August 1st for the primary and general elections.
Okay. So then there we go. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to some of these things run late. I think it's New Hampshire, Vermont. One of they're like mid-October is their primaries, and then you've got November. So you got like a week to get ready, kind of thing. But I mean, a lot of those places it's just one party rule, so it doesn't really matter. I don't think we're gonna have any upsets here. I don't. But I think that the Texas thing is interesting. I think they could see if that Tallarico guy gets by Crockett, and I think he's going to. But I don't think you've got to get 50+1 there. And then if Paxton, who I think is probably going to win for the Republicans, but they're both going to be runoffs, you're looking at, I think he has a shot of beating, because Paxton is not, outside of a small group, he's not super popular there. Cornyn, I think, would be both. Jasmine Crockett, she just says stuff that's crazy. And she gets, because she understands the algorithms, which is important in today's world. She understands how to get people to pay attention. Absolutely, because that's what it's all about. In fact, I was watching, what's his name? Mark Cuban talk about the algorithm world and why Mondani does so well. And Tallarico's done. First of all, they've grown up in a world of only the internet. And they understand how to work the internet. They understand how to use the algorithms. They understand that. And Trump has taught them a lot of that. The amount of free stuff that Trump got his first go-around when he ran for president because he would go on Morning Joe every day. He would go on CNN all the time. He was on Fox all the time. He didn't care. Not only did he figure out how to reach the people through his tweets, but he would go on everybody's show all the time. It was billions of dollars, you could probably break it down to, of free advertising. Even now, super accessible. I was watching Jonathan Karl from ABC News talk about the fact that he just picked up the phone and called him yesterday to ask him questions about, Iran. And he picked up the phone and he talked to him. And he goes, I'm always surprised that he does. Super accessible. He gets it. A lot of other people don't. And that's what, that is what Mark Cuban was talking about, how so many of the people, especially in the Democrat Party, first of all, they're always going to choose the worst path possible in cultural issues. They care about activists, not the average person. So that's why they fail all the time. But I thought it was very interesting what he said.
In 2024, you campaigned with Vice President Kamala Harris, who you endorsed. But having now had a chance to reflect on this, and I know that Democrats from across the country are coming to you saying, what should Democrats be doing differently? What are Democrats getting wrong? You have said Democrats can't sell anything. I mean, Here you are selling an idea, selling reform, selling healthcare, selling cheaper drug prices. What are Democrats getting wrong, though? Like, what can they learn? Like, how do you assess?
Yeah. You have to be a problem solver first. Democrats used to be a party of entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
They no longer are. It used to be people that were part of the party were focused on solving the problem as opposed to creating policy first, because creating policy in this environment particularly is all about getting elected first as opposed to solving problems. And I think they've got it backwards.
Yeah.
I think you have to solve problems, which demonstrates to voters that you're able to solve problems and that they support people who can.
Do you think Kamala wasn't able to do that?
Kamala, it wasn't that she wasn't able to do that. She wasn't given the opportunity.
Right.
Because nobody was going to give her the opportunity to solve any problems. Because she couldn't. She couldn't. They knew that. And that was a big, at the end of the day, Ken and I laugh about it all the time. That was the biggest FU that you could have seen, was when Biden goes, and I'm getting behind Kamala, because he knew they were screwed. They were absolutely screwed. But she couldn't solve any of the problems. She couldn't solve any problems when she was in California, right? And she was in the Senate. She was at the AG. She couldn't solve any of those problems because she's not a problem solver. She's a politician that knows how to politic enough to be in places and get herself elected and or handed something.
To pitch any of that. They couldn't. Democrats, if you gave the Democrats a chance to sell dollar bills for 50 cents, they would try to pass a law that made it happen before just doing it.
One of the things you've pointed to Donald Trump, Zohran Mamdani, James Tallarico, the candidate who's running for Senate in Texas, as individuals who can leverage the attention economy effectively.
Yes.
Is that what any candidate needs to be able to do?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what you're doing. So to be a successful Democrat in the next wave, I mean, I know they're asking you for advice. Are you telling them
yes,
you have to win at this attention game?
Yes, you have to understand that in an algorithmic world where people get almost all of their information via social media, everybody has their own individual feed. If you want to know what a person's all about, look at what their Instagram or TikTok or Facebook feed is. And if you don't flood the zone, to quote Steve Bannon, right? If you don't flood the zone and do things that gain the attention of the algorithm and have it feed people, you're forgotten. You're lost. Look at when Donald Trump was saying they're eating cats and dogs. It wasn't because he thought people were literally eating cats and dogs. He knew, he was smart enough to know that's how you get attention in an algorithmic world.
And that it's say the most insane things, even if you don't believe it. And for those of you out there who don't quite understand, I've been in this business 30 years. I know a lot of the people that you see, like, oh, they don't believe 75% of the crap they say. You know what they like, though? They like a paycheck, and they're willing to say stuff that's ridiculous and laugh about it.
Especially if it gets you to vote for them.
Yeah. And the same thing goes for people who are influencers. I know a lot of influencers who say stuff that I know they do not believe one bit. But they do it because it's great for business. Saying stuff that's ridiculous. Going over the top. because we don't live in a time where you would be held accountable if you got something wrong or said something that's ridiculous anymore. People just go, oh, because it's the algorithms.
Mondami here in New York, right? He's Trump Jr. He's a little clone of Trump. James Tallarico and Mondami, you know what they have in common?
No.
They both grew up in an era where Donald Trump was the dominant politician that was dominated by social media. And you look at Mondami, brilliant at social media, right? I told the Democrats they should hire his team, pay him $10 million each to take them from him, because that'll get them further along than buying $50 million worth of ads on linear media.
So true. So true. $50 million in ads. I mean, and that's what Trump did. And Mamdani, here's the thing. Tallarico's politics can play in a bigger place. If you guys don't know him, he's like 37. He's a pastor. He's a Democrat. He is, it's very, when I do my national show, I have a lot of stations in Texas, and I get a lot of people who are on the right who say, I'm really interested. I went and watched him speak. He's an interesting character because they're frustrated, which is understandable. We should all be frustrated because there's a lot to be frustrated about, but they're interested in this guy. Mondani's politics plays in New York, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles. It doesn't play anywhere else. It doesn't. But he understands. He understands the algorithms. I mean, go look at it. You can have a disdain for him and his, and which, by the way, Trump doesn't. Trump loves the guy. Trump loves the guy, which I'm always fascinated about. They text all the time. All the time they text. And Trump loves the fact that he's not afraid to go after him. But even this past week, he goes and visits him. They're talking about affordable housing. And he tells Trump, hey, you got a girl who's in custody, DHS. And he's like, oh, I'll get her out. And you laugh because that's Trump. But he admires him because he looks at him and thinks, oh, this guy's kind of doing what I did. Populism. Going a totally different way. But a lot of what he says is the same. We just have a different way that we want to get there. Which, again, is interesting. But the Democrats, that's the beauty of the Republicans, as bad as they have floundered many things. You just have to leave it to the Democrats. Just, what do you always say? Don't talk when the other team's kicking their own ass?
Never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake.
Yeah, and they will. They will. They will make a mistake over and over again. Over and over again. That's why it's bizarre that primaries are so important the way they are, because the fervent supporters come out. And a lot of times you see people get through, and candidates, the quality of candidates matter. And those people, they can't win a general. They can get a small percentage to vote, but they can't win a big general. All right, coming up, Japan doing something with old workers. And by old, I mean people in their 50s. Not like us guys in our 40s, 30s, 20s, but in their 50s. We'll talk about that straight ahead. Chad Benson, Super Talk 99.7. All right, boys. So, in Japan, when you go to work in Japan, way back in the day, it used to be for life. Okay, so you go there, you work for life. Now, those folks are older and they're useless. So what do? They have rooms where they literally have people in their 50s and 60s who just sit there and stare out the window with no computer, just a desk. How weird is that?
Well, especially from that culture, because they hold ancestors and family in such reverence.
Yes. So, and when you would say that, because these companies would fight hard to get you. So their culture is, first of all, samurais, awesome. But Godzilla, pretty cool. You work your ass off in school all the way up through high school. College is a cakewalk. College is nonstop party in Japan. Then you get out and you get a job. And that job, for the most part, it's going to be your job for life. And they promise you, you're going to work there for life. This is your thing. We're going to be a team for life. And then what happens? Well, life has passed people by. AI, computers, these companies have all of this dead weight. And so what do? They don't fire you because, as Bell said, there's a certain part of the culture that would be shameful. So instead, what they do is they just stick you in a room and you look out a window all day.
And get a paycheck?
I'm
in. Where's the room?
I was going to say, can you work on your farm town?
Probably.
It'd have to be on your phone.
Yeah, it'd have to be on your phone. I don't even think they want you touching anything.
Oh, hopefully they don't have a policy against that.
No. Well, I don't if you want to work on your farm town. But it just shows you that the culture, though, is, and this is why their culture, though, has struggles when it comes to stagnation, when they should have downside years ago, but they continue to pay people to do nothing. That's insane. I mean, I'm always fascinated. Like, California had the strongest teachers unions whatsoever. In California, in Los Angeles in particular, there is a bunch of bungalows in downtown Los Angeles that if you're a teacher that is suspended, you go there and you sit there all day with the other teachers. No matter what you're suspended for, it could be some of the most heinous stuff, and they just sit in these rooms.
Are you allowed to talk?
Yeah, they just sit there and do nothing.
Oh, so it's not like when you get suspended in school.
No, they could deem you to be just an idiot who shouldn't be teaching kids, but you can't fire them because on average it takes about $750,000 to $1 million to fire a teacher in California. So what do? It's easier to stick you over there and have you do nothing. I'm fascinated by that. And you know what I'm fascinated by? People that will say that's okay. Like, you have nothing inside of you that would want to go, okay, this is not who I am. I'm better than this. Apparently not. Very interesting. But if you want to go to Japan and get a job for life and then eventually look out of a window with nothing to do or play Farmtown, Japan's got you covered. Coming up, hour number 3 of the program. Chad Benson Show, Super Talk 99.7.